Welcome into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems. Nothing is more important than the safety of your family or your property, or if you're a business owner, the business property and your employees. For nearly 20 years, the folks at Safety Systems, they've been locally owned. They've been the leader in security systems, residential and commercial, safety and security systems. That's fire alarms for your business, smoke alarms for your home, security systems where you can keep an eye on your home at all times, wherever you are, via phone or tablet or computer. They do great stuff. I know these people. They've done stuff in my home. I think the world of them. Trust them as well as you can trust anybody. Can't give them a better recommendation. Safety Systems. They do great, great work. I appreciate them, and you should give them a call. All right, 5 fall roster topics in this segment, about a minute for each, okay? I'm going to start and we'll go down the line. Bob, this week started with a surprising announcement. Khalil McKenzie is joining John Kelly and Rashaan Gaulden and getting out of here and going to the NFL early. Your thoughts on his decision?
A very surprising decision. I watched him last year. His numbers weren't horrible for the year at all, and I think he's one of your better defensive linemen. However, I don't think he looks anywhere near an NFL-ready prospect. My thought was, did they call him into the office and one of the coaches say, hey, look, here comes offensive guard Khalil McKenzie? Did that sort of push it a little bit? Then you go back to they don't have a lot of depth on the defensive line, so you don't know. I'm surprised that he left early. He just does not look like one of those guys that's going to get – I think he could go undrafted. He's got the physical size, but I think he could go undrafted, except for one team.
Except for one team. Except for one team. Your Raiders, I have their GM as a fellow. Oh, yeah, it's Khalil McKenzie's father, the VFL.
Oh, I've already talked myself into Khalil being a 5-year starter in the NFL.
Yeah.
For a terrific franchise.
Well, let me ask you, what does this mean for a Tennessee team that's already thin on the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, it means that Tennessee has to replace its top 2 defensive linemen there in the interior from this past year. Shy Tuttle with an offseason where he's not actually having to come back from injury but can actually work on his game. That helps, but still, replacing Vickers, replacing Kendall Vickers, and replacing Khalil McKenzie from last year, a defense that already had some issues, you're transitioning. It's never a good thing for a coaching staff to take over and be thin up front, and that's where Tennessee's going to be on defense.
Pro Football Focus, a group that scouts, and they look at all of the games, all of the game film, and they grade every play. Now, part of that's a little sketchy because how do they know what every guy's assignment actually is? So there's a little guesswork there for them. But they ranked Khalil McKenzie last year behind Rashaan Gaulden and Nigel Warrior as the number 3 best defender on Tennessee's football team. So you've lost 2 of your best 3 according to Pro Football Focus. Doesn't help. Mike Strange, Jeremy Pruitt, and Philip Fulmer both made it sound like the door will be open for Jauan Jennings, who was dismissed by John Curry and Brady Hoke about 2 months ago. Names that will live in infamy. Fulmer said on Sports Talk that there would be some parameters to it if Pruitt allows him to do it. There were a lot of issues for Jauan Jennings off the field at Tennessee. Should they open the door to him?
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't think it's just the rant, the social media rant.
Right.
I think there have been some other things involved there. And in light of all that, I'd have a tough time letting him back on the team. But I'm not saying I wouldn't, because I don't know all the information. I think I would go to the players. I would talk to some players on this team and say, how do you guys feel about letting this guy back in here? I think that would weigh heavily in my decision.
I think that's a good point. And I also think that the parameters idea, if you can jump through these 25 hoops, then we'll welcome you back, and if the players want you back.
And one of the things that bothers you, didn't he just pretty much disappear? Yeah. I mean,
yes.
During the season,
yes,
and I would.
You're jumping in, Chuck. This isn't your question. How dare you?
All right,
but yes, he disappeared.
All right. What's he got?
Yeah, he's got wide receiver Tyler Byrd indicated this week that he's now defensive back Tyler Byrd. Jeremy Pruitt wouldn't talk about that when he met with the media this week. Would UT be better off with Byrd at corner or at receiver?
Well, I think Josh touched on it earlier. You're losing really 4 corners. And I think Tyler Byrd could have more touches on defense than he was on offense.
Mike, do you agree with Chuck's assessment?
What have you really gotten out of Tyler Byrd on offense for 2 years?
Yeah.
So move him over there.
Other than some pretty good tweets before you played South Carolina, they didn't back up.
That's right. Okay. All right. Now, finally, multiple outlets have now reported on the injury to Vol safety Todd Kelly Jr. after a 30-foot fall. He's not the first kid to apparently make a bad decision when alcohol was involved. I know I'm glad my transgressions at that age didn't make the newspapers. But I wasn't a public figure, and while this job really sucks at times, the job does require folks who report the news, like Jimmy Himes, like the Knoxville News Sentinel, to report the good and the bad. This was a key player for Tennessee. He was hospitalized after an injury. There was a police report. It explained what happened based on what witnesses said they saw and heard. That is news. And Jimmy and the Sentinel both simply quoted the police report. There was zero speculation. They said, here's what the report and the witnesses said, period. End of story. That's what they reported. Now, I get it. It's a family issue, and the family wouldn't want that out. The positive, if there is one, I'm guessing, is Kelly is now going to get a ton of support from Vol Nation. It's probably going to be the loudest cheer when Jeff Jarnigan says his name at the home opener next year. I'm sure that all of us here are pulling for him, and I know that Jimmy Hyams is pulling for him as well, having talked to Jimmy. And if all of us gave up after an embarrassing episode when something made news, we'd have thrown in the flag somewhere around high school. So I think that Todd Kelly Jr. is going to get through this, whatever the story turns out to be. But all that Jimmy Hyams and the News Sentinel did was basically quote the police report. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, Jimmy was scheduled to be here last week and next week, and he will be here next week. Okay? If over the last 15 years I removed everyone from the set after every angry tweet I got demanding I do so, you'd be looking at 5 empty chairs today. So everyone will be here next week. Questions on the Lady Vols, Titans, Georgia football fans, Nick Saban, and much, much more coming up next.